Imagine a man so powerful that he redefined the underworld of organized crime, outsmarted the government, and shaped the course of American history from the shadows. A man whose name still strikes fear and admiration decades after his death. This is the legendary story of Lucky Luciano in just 5 minutes. Born as Salvatore Lucania in 1897, Luciano came from humble beginnings in Sicily, Italy. But the streets of New York City, where he arrived as a child, would become his kingdom. By the time he was a teenager, Luciano had already tasted power, establishing himself as a ruthless force in the city's criminal underworld. Luciano's rise was as meteoric as it was brutal. He aligned himself with the most dangerous men in New York, joining forces with notorious gangsters like Meyer Lansky and Frank Costello. Together, they formed a criminal empire, taking control of illegal gambling, bootlegging during Prohibition, and racketeering. But Luciano was different. He was smart. He saw beyond the petty rivalries that crippled the underworld. He had a vision to unify the criminal organizations under one single unstoppable force. However, Luciano's ambition was soon tested by one of the bloodiest conflicts in mafia history, the Castellamarese War. This violent power struggle in the late 1920s pitted Joe the Boss Masseria against Salvatore Maranzano, a cunning Sicilian newcomer. Luciano, initially aligned with Masseria, quickly grew tired of the senseless violence that threatened his vision of a more organized and profitable underworld. But before he could act, Luciano himself became a target. In 1929, he was kidnapped by unknown men. They beat him, stabbed him, and left him for dead on a desolate Staten Island beach. Yet, against all odds, Luciano survived. His incredible luck in surviving the attack earned him the nickname Lucky. Far from deterring him, this near-death experience only strengthened Luciano's resolve to bring order to the chaos. Realizing that the old guard had to go if his vision was to succeed, Luciano made his most daring move. In 1931, he secretly negotiated with Maranzano, agreeing to betray his own boss, Joe Masseria. The plan was executed flawlessly. Masseria was gunned down while dining at a restaurant, with Luciano conveniently out of the room. But Luciano knew that Maranzano, now self-proclaimed as boss of all bosses, posed an equally serious threat to his vision. Maranzano sought to rule with absolute power, a model that clashed with Luciano's idea of a more democratic and efficient mafia structure. So, Luciano struck again. In September 1931, Maranzano was assassinated by Luciano's men, paving the way for the creation of the Commission, a governing body that replaced the old, autocratic ways with a more organized and cooperative approach to crime. With the old bosses out of the way, Luciano was free to implement his vision. This revolutionary move ended the era of one-man rule in the mafia and introduced a system of checks and balances among the families. Under Luciano's leadership, the American mafia became more organized, more efficient, and more powerful than ever before. But with power comes enemies. In 1936, Luciano's empire began to crumble. The U.S. government, led by Special Prosecutor Thomas Dewey, launched a relentless campaign against organized crime. Luciano was targeted and eventually convicted for running a massive prostitution ring, a charge he always denied. He was sentenced to 30 to 50 years in prison, but even behind bars, Luciano's influence was undeniable. World War II brought an unexpected twist to Luciano's story. In 1942, the U.S. Navy, desperate for help in securing the New York docks from potential sabotage, turned to Luciano. In exchange for his cooperation, his prison sentence was dramatically reduced. By 1946, Luciano was a free man, but under the condition that he would be deported to Italy. Even in exile, Luciano's shadow loomed large. From Italy, he continued to manage his criminal empire, staying involved in international drug trafficking and maintaining connections with American mobsters. But in 1962, Luciano's life came to a sudden end from a heart attack. Lucky Luciano's life is a tale of ambition, betrayal, and power. He transformed the mafia into an organization that would become deeply embedded in American society. To this day, his legacy lives on in the underworld he helped create, an empire of crime built on the ruins of his ruthless yet ingenious mind.